Hello, and welcome to Career Track by Climate Connect, a series where we explore the journeys of people building their careers in climate landscape. We started this podcast with the aim to help young professionals understand the climate landscape and know where they can fit in, because we really need more people to contribute in the climate space. And for today's episode, we have with us Ms. Namrata Kabra. Namrata is a senior project associate at Kubernein Initiative, where she works on climate and water security projects. She holds a decade of experience as a legal researcher working at national and international and regional organizations. Namrata, we welcome you for today's episode. I'm excited to have conversations with you. Before we dive deeper into the conversations, I want you to briefly introduce yourself, what you do, what your background is in, what the Kubernein Initiative does.
Okay, hi. So as I was mentioning, I'm very happy that you've invited me, and also that you're leading this program on Climate Connect and trying to look at different career trajectories that people have had within climate space, which I feel is extremely important because a lot of people are interested in climate, but they don't know what they can do in the sense for a living in this space. So thank you, and very happy to be speaking about a little bit of my journey in this process. It's a in a way it's my hidden agenda to always try to bring more people into this space, because there is so much dearth of people, and there is so many things that is needed at a very urgent and massive scale. So more people that come into this space, that will be more better for our planet and for our future. In terms of my background, a little bit of introduction is that I have a background and a training in law, and then I've pursued my PG diplomas and masters in environmental law and climate change. Earlier in my career, I was practicing environmental law in various different courts, mostly in Karnataka in the High Court and NGT, a few cases. And then what I've done is a little bit of trajectory has moved towards research, training, and policy making within the larger space of environmental law and research. So that is a little bit about me. And currently, I am a senior program associate at Kubernein Initiative, where I'm leading the program on water and climate security for India. And also looking at South Asia, because our water systems are all interconnected. Our socio-economic trajectories are also interconnected, and therefore looking at water and climate security, which is the most visible form of impacts within the climate security, where we see the changes in water systems, be it through rains, glacial melts, or glacial lake outbursts, floods. Within cities, when we look at floods, then there are droughts. All of these are water is one of the most visible manifestation of climate change, and therefore, and it's also extremely important to our economy and our basic, everyday day-to-day life. So that is a space that I'm looking into currently, but all the other kind of learnings that I've had are, it's all in a way amalgamated into the space. And Kubernein Initiative it's a research think tank slash a geopolitical advisory, which is looking at issues on international relations, foreign policy, water and climate security, and sustainability, all from a gender and a feminist lens. And oftentimes, what we do is kind of interconnect uh, international relations with water and climate security, because often these issues are siloed, but they need to be looked into with an intersection, and that is the kind of uh, idea with which Kubernein Initiative is working in this space. Yeah.
That's wonderful. You have an amazing journey. I wonder what made you shift towards environmental law, because it's the most, I think, a little uncommon career people usually pursue, particularly in environmental and then law in that field. So what was the other moment that made you feel that I want to make career here?
Mm. So let me, to be very honest, I did not think of environmental law when I started law, or as a student in school also. I used to love social sciences. That was my favorite subject. I would all the time just keep reading about that. And somehow maybe it is through the social sciences impact that I always had, whenever I came across cases in economics. I think in ninth or 10th grade, they had started telling us about, the Jago Grahak Jago, and, consumer cases that anyone can be a party and, ask for your rights. So that really was something which I felt very empowering. And I think that has led me to pursue law, essentially because I loved reading social sciences and then this idea of justice. So that is how I started learning law, and I was very, very fascinated. Till date, I'm very fascinated by the law. I enjoy reading a lot on the law, but I did not know of environmental law as a career option until in the fourth year we had a subject on environmental law, and all credits to my professor, because otherwise most teachers could be like, this is a dry subject, they don't want to take it. But Dhyaneshwar Chaudhary, who was my class teacher as well, he made the subject very interesting by asking all of us to, there were like so many case studies across India on environmental law. He gave each of us a case study and was like, you come and present about it. And that is when I started thinking that, oh, this is something which can be a career, which is of my interest as well. And then it goes back to the Jago Grahak Jago or the social sciences kind of, interlinkages that I've always had. So that is when I started looking into this space a little bit more actively. Even then, it was not like an idea of a profession, but I started looking at it more actively. And then during my final year internship, I got an opportunity to work on a case, a impleading application within a PIL to protect a lake. And this lake was also something which was close to my house itself, and obviously close to my heart as well, because I used to go there every evenings. This was in Bangalore. So that also gave me an idea that, this is something real. This is not now just something which I'm reading in books about how this can be a career, but this is really something that can be pursued. And ever since then, post my completion of law, I enrolled into PG diplomas to get a little bit more understanding of the space. And ever since, yeah, I've not regretted or looked back. So yeah, I think environmental law just happened to me, but a lot of things have to go back to enjoying reading uh, and traveling. Yeah, so I wanted to protect all the places that I wanted to travel to.
That's nice. Something that I can also resonate to, because even I remember since childhood, since school, I was like, I want to be in social sciences. I love reading social sciences things.
Oh,
So I'm really glad when I meet persons like similar ideas with
true.
me.
It feels very relatable, right? Because you see something that's really happening in your society, and even in terms of conversation, it's very real. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yes. You mentioned that Kubernein works on a gendered perspective, and even you're working in climate and climate and water security from a gendered lens. Like, in your experience, was there any example you could share where you felt like where gender or climate, gendered aspect has not been taken into account, and the policy and the initiative turned out to be a little weak? So, have you seen an example or anything like that you could share with us?
there are a lot of examples, and that is why the need for it. One that is, even for my, I wanted to pursue an LLM just in a way to explore this topic of gender and climate change, how it is impacting within India. And at the time, there was not much information or data. In fact, my dissertation was not even accepted. Like the topic was not accepted, and I had to justify that this is something which really needs to be looked into. But now it has become much more mainstream in the sense that, even policies are responding to it. So the essence or the basic fact remains that gender is differently and disproportionately impacted by climate change. And something very basic again to know is that climate change is not particularly, looking at gender as a sex, that, okay, I have to be different to a woman versus a man. It's not that. It is the inherent social system, social and political, social, political, economical systems that we are in. The different layers of marginalization happens within our systems, and some of them are not represented in the policies, in actions, in responses. And that is precisely what happens with gender as well. That oftentimes gender is not represented or not thought of when the policies are being made, and therefore they are impacted differently and disproportionately. One, because of the situation, because of the social cultural situation, and the two, if they're not mainstream into the policy, then there is a double kind of whammy to gender justice in that sense. So examples are many, but I can give you something which is very relatable, or very, that's where, gender and climate change in Indian context kind of really came into limelight was during the tsunami uh, in 2000s that happened in the Andaman and the southern coast of India.
Mm, mm,
Uh, the kind of loss of lives that happened, there was 80 to 90% was women. That is when there
mm,
was like a stark visible factor that how is this happening, that women are more impacted by tsunami than men. And when you dive into it, you realize that some of the basic things, such as one, of course, women are more of caregivers, and then they stayed back
mm,
until the last moment because they have to take care of their families and elderly and etc. And also because they want to go out of their space because how do I say? It's not a comfortable space for women to move out of their houses in certain situations. I'm not saying this is for
mm,
all, but in so many
mm,
cases.
mm,
And something like basic skill of lack of swimming. Most women did not know how to swim, and that is why also they lost their lives. So something as
mm,
simple as within policy, if we are mindful that there are many women who are not skilled in swimming, let's do that. So policies can definitely respond to it. And sometimes it's very easy. It's not going to be something majorly different, but it starts from first acknowledging that there are differentiated impacts. And for that, we need to have data. In this case, there was a data which showed that 90%, 80 to 90% were women and only 10% men
mm,
were impacted. That is when it
mm,
became a real wonderment or research question that, okay, why did this happen? So more and more research will show that how it is differently impacted. Now, in case of air pollution, also you will see so many examples. Both women who are working indoors and outdoors, there will be a differentiated impacts
mm,
in terms of heat as well. And this is not just in India, this is across the world. During the European heat wave in 2014-15 in France, especially, again, there were maximum mortality of women. Uh, and that was also because they were mostly women who were indoors, and there is a linkage to patriarchy in that sense that, because
mm,
they were not
mm,
going out, they were staying indoors. And during heat, while we say that you should not be outdoors, but sometimes indoor heat, and also in the same case as pollution, indoor air pollution could be much more fatal if there is no ventilation and things like that, and also information about what is happening. So there are many, many cases, and it's a matter of, it's 50% of the population. So when you're thinking of policies, you have to think of, how it is impacting different people and bringing all voices together and representation. So once we have women represented in the policies, then naturally there will be so many things which are otherwise kind of taken for granted, or which are blinded, will be into the space. So that is what we are trying to do at KI as well, to mainstream gender issues into the climate and water spaces as much as possible, and provide solutions for it. And there are so many examples where women are leading. So it's not just that they
mm.
are victims, they are agents of change. They know how to resolve some of these things.
That's nice. That's true as well. I think so. You work on a legal and policy aspect, and you've worked on like, could you share like your experience of how policies does not just remain on paper; they have to be turned into action, law or policy. So, what do you think about that, and how can we ensure that?
Okay, yeah, it's just kind of time consuming. Earlier, when I used to work on in the courts as well, it would take a lot of time for winning a particular case, and it's like years and years together. But I can highlight some examples which have given me hope to continue in this space. One
Mm,
is, when you're working on waste management in Bangalore, and our we did a lot of field visits to different landfills and so on, and what is the problem and how at ward level this needs to be managed. And in Bangalore, then finally, through the course of our case, at least ward committees were formed. And these are, like, 1993, when the Constitution 73rd, 74th Amendment had come into place, it had asked for, making ward committees.
mm,
But for 25, 30 years almost, these were not in place. But through the waste management case, we were able to get this ward committees formed, and then start looking at solid waste management as a ward level issue, because instead of collecting all the waste of an entire city like Bangalore and taking it to a landfill does not make sense. For
Mm,
any city, it doesn't make sense, but that's where we did our study. So we were like, manage your waste at the ward level itself. And that is where, you see that one clear impact of your law into policy. And this was mostly because it was in the courts as well, it was implementation. And more you'll see within, especially in environmental law space, is that it's the implementation which is key. There are so many things that are already there, but it's
mm,
the implementation of things that we need to bring into place. So that is one example. Then during the G20 that India was president, we had engaged at various different levels within, women W20, T20, and U20 as well, which is the urban 20. So within the urban 20, what we did was, along with NIUA and UN Women, we hosted a couple of days of workshop, intensive workshop, discussing on various different aspects of mainstreaming women in urban frameworks, and
mm,
on key important topics such as safety, water, climate security, climate finance, and mobility, transport, and things like that. The most very basic kind of things that generally happens in a city, but looking at it from a gender and a woman's perspective. So we came up with a policy brief, which was then released at the mayoral summit in Ahmedabad. And all of those policies were ideally given to all the mayors across India. So now it's
mm,
on the table to people for people to look into it and apply. So these are, it takes a lot of time. It's not like, in one shot it's going to be solved. It takes a lot of time, lots of years. But there are quite many positive changes that do happen because of your work. It takes time, but I think there is, yeah, you have to keep pushing, and there you will see some positive changes within the space.
nice. I think that would be a really good feeling, satisfactory feeling that what you are working on is something that's you're
Yeah.
seeing that is being implemented and being put on the ground.
100%. Yeah, that's the most satisfying thing.
You also coordinate and facilitate South Asia Bioregional Working Group in Regis. What something who listeners who are unfamiliar with, what does term bioregional governance means? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. So bioregional governance essentially means that a form of governance that is guided by ecology, and in combination with people, human systems and cultures that have been living within that particular ecology.
Hmm.
You might think it's sounding a little abstract at the moment, but when you start looking at examples, you'll realize it is not so really. I can take you through an example of, like, let's say Himalayas, which everybody understands. Himalayas is a one contiguous ecosystem which
Hmm.
starts from, within India. It starts from Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh to all the way till Arunachal Pradesh and the northeast as well. So this is a contiguous ecosystem, but we have a lot of our policies and responses to these issues looking at it from a state perspective. Himachal Pradesh has a different kind of policy on Himalayas, or looking within that ecosystem, and Uttarakhand has differently. But what we really need to do and push for is looking at this entire ecosystem as one, and have a governance system understanding the challenges of that ecosystem as a one. And this is a very big bioregion actually. Within that,
Hmm.
also there are like different bioregions. Your Trans Himalaya is different than the Western Himalaya. But looking at this as one contiguous unit without political boundaries. So
Hmm.
a lot of times what happens generally is, you have a territory and your policies are defined by that territory, and within that territory, so which is called as jurisdiction, legally
Hmm.
speaking. So here in this case, what we're trying to say is, look beyond jurisdiction of political boundaries, but look at the jurisdiction of the nature or the ecology itself, because that has its own boundaries.
Hmm.
Himalaya has its own boundaries. Post Himalayas, there is a plains. So look
Hmm.
at that as one ecosystem, and then have policies to protect and also govern for whatever things, even in terms of what the development should be, within that space needs to be understood from that ecology. We cannot have something which is there in Western Ghats same as in Himalayas, because they're very different ecosystems. So being very grounded in the understanding of an ecosystem and how culturally people have developed within that space. And it is not as abstract as it may even now sound to you, because you'll see in India, we have our wildlife laws, biodiversity laws, our agricultural policies. They're all determined by these different bioregional zones, and
Mm.
also it can be called as climatic zones. So these are very natural existing characteristics or features of a territory, and which needs to be then governed in that way. And this is what we are trying to push for. That understanding. And in this case, we are looking at in from a South Asia context, because South Asia is a connected ecosystem.
Mm.
The Himalayas in Nepal and in India are not different. And then, we have Sundarbans on one side between India and Bangladesh. We are sharing the sea between India and Sri Lanka. So it's all interconnected. And therefore, the governance aspects, while within your territory you will be governing it, but the idea and principles for it needs to be thought of from a common perspective, that what is better for that ecosystem. And that would be a bioregional governance, and for which we have been doing some case studies to understand how that can be implemented. Yeah.
Correct. That's I think that's important perspective to think about when we think about environment and climate perspective as well. Correct.
Mhm.
As I mentioned earlier, the aim of this podcast is to help young professionals. So, if somebody who wants to be a 21-year-old recent graduate who wants to be into policy and legal aspect of climate and governance, so like, what are the entry points and breakthrough where they can enter this space?
Mm. Think there are many, very many entry points, and I have myself tried to explore, and I think till date I'm trying to get still kind of enter into different spaces where this needs to be heard and spoken and learnt also from. But for young people, and it does not necessarily have to be law, because I did law, for me,
Mm.
environmental law, and then courts became like the obvious choice initially. But through my
Mm.
course also, I realized that, there needs to be more research, and therefore I tried to look into academia a little bit, which helped me uh, write and, research on these topics, and which made my understanding of these issues much more clearer. So it could be through research, it could be through um, activism, it could be through policy. I don't know. I mean, whatever you feel most comfortable. There are so many different avenues where you can kind of try to explore. Um, so whatever that you feel is comfortable, wherever you get an opportunity, just go and just see what's happening. Because maybe, through the course of two, three different experiences, you will realize what is that you really want to continue. So, but until you don't try them out, you will not really know what is that you do not like as well. So I think, and each experience then adds on to something which kind of builds on your experience and knowledge. So I would say start with reading, start with going out in nature as much as possible,
Mm.
going and learning about birding is something which I am still trying my hand. But the more you love nature, the more you will travel, you will start feeling connected. And then when you hear about
Mm.
some issue that's happening around that space, then naturally you will feel the need to respond and be part of that system where, you're trying to bring about change. So, yeah, there are many entry points. You just have to feel determined and step out.
Yeah, true. Is there any particular skills or mindset required to be a part of this place, this field?
No mindset as such. I think it really comes down to just passion about, your environment, nature, and maybe you think of your favorite animal, think of your favorite bird or a place that you would want to go. It really is about passion. skills will follow. You can always learn skills, but passion is something which will have to come from within.
Mm.
And over the course, you can learn these skills about, writing and speaking about it in different ways and platform. So I think no particular skills. This is something which, anyone can come into this space with any degree, any kind of a background, because it's something which everybody can see it, everybody can feel it.
Yeah, I think passion is the most. If that's inside, one can sail through things that challenges that come to life.
That's true for anything, but especially for this.
Yeah. You also mentioned that whatever opportunities one can get, be it like the fellowships or any grassroots experiences, one can just go out and just see, and then maybe understand this field. So, what do you think? Any advice would you give that we can access to such opportunities? Where did you get to learn like some courses or any fellowships or anything that young professionals can choose into?
Yeah, I think these kind of opportunities now there are much more. Like there are so many fellowships and options that I see now in this space, which were not there so much earlier during when I started out. At the time, I had mostly like these PG diplomas. They are still continuing to exist on environmental law. The first one I did was on tourism and environmental law because of my love for travel, and then I did one in environmental law and policy. So I think there are so many of these options, and why one should engage in this process is one to kind of further um, feel comfortable in this space, because sometimes what happens, you might be passionate but then you think, okay, this is not something you want to do, and through these courses I think you get a little bit more understanding of the space and what it may entail. So even the fellowships, I feel, you will get a first hand experience of what it is going to be or look like once you are in this career. So trying to explore all of these, and then you will meet so many different people while you're pursuing these things during your
Mm.
fellowship, during your if you're doing any kind of diplomas, etc. You will see a lot of people who are, within the space of as a mentor, and then you see what career trajectories they have gone through, and your network will expand and you will see more opportunities that are there in the space. So I think it's really helpful to engage, and then you will see peers as well, that you're not alone in this space who wants to do this. There are so many other people also who are engaging, and then you will have a your own kind of people within the space who would be your peers and colleagues. So I think there are, I cannot tell you one or two which are really standing out, but there are so many of them which you can try. There are one, like there is a friend of mine and colleague who has this fellowships on walking along the rivers and noting down everything that you see across along the rivers. So that is also
Mm.
something extra, which I also want to do, but I haven't had the time to pursue that. But and then reporting on it depending on whatever skill set you have. I know people who are like, who have done through just zines, someone who has made it into a comic, someone who has then used legal tools to then, document where a particular kind of issues exist along the path of the river. So
Mm.
there are so many interesting avenues that exist. Just go and see, and then you will see what other people are doing, and um, experience for yourself. And it will also give you a reality check in a way that do you really want to continue in this space or not, as a career,
Mm.
or is it just a hobby for you? I think that will then help you distinguish as well.
Mm. Correct. Correct. So, moving on to challenges, what are some of the challenges that you faced in this field, and like how can people overcome these challenges?
I think, I mean, challenges will exist, do exist everywhere. That
Mm.
is a given. But within this space, some of the challenges is uh, again, you have to do a lot of exploration on your own. It's not kind of as documented that, this is a particular career trajectory that, it's not like, you do an MBA, then you will get a job, and then
Mm.
this is the hierarchy at which you're going to look at, etc., etc. This is something which will differ from person to person who gets into this space, and you might have to explore it on your own uh, for a while. So there is a lot of unknown, I feel, in this space. And the other challenge definitely is uh, opportunities plus also uh, monetary, remuneration. A lot of people don't continue to pursue this space because it is not as rewarding as there could be other fields. So I think, yeah, these are some of the challenges which needs to be overcome. You might have to think differently on how you look at career or livelihood or a living also. So yeah, I think these are some of the challenges, definitely. Some days you have to do some voluntary work.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that's where passion comes into being. When somebody's passionate about it, they can do better in any field.
true, true, 100%. And then over time, you will realize that it is not as bad as well, that, you're not completely left on your own. There are so many avenues through which you can earn a livelihood and continue to be doing something meaningful that makes sense to you, where you can feel content with your work. So there are different options. And I think reaching out to people who are already in this space is a good idea always, that,
Hmm.
you reach out and ask them what it's going to be like, and that will give you some kind of hope and strength to continue.
So we've come towards the end of our podcast. Before that, we do a rapid fire round with our guests. So I have a few questions that. So, first one is a book or a podcast that inspires you the most.
Oh, I would say, I mean, it's kind of might be boring, but I really love reading the Constitution, especially the fundamental rights. And when it comes to environmental law, it's just like, this couple of rights, just Article 21, which is so powerful, then Article 51 AG, which talks about your fundamental duty, that it is your duty to protect the environment. One, it is your right to have a clean and healthy environment, but it is also your duty to protect and conserve the environment. And then it's a state's duty as well. So, yeah, in that sense, my favorite would be the Constitution of India, which encompasses all of these things. But there are so many other books that I keep reading. There is, I think, if for an early career person, they can try reading Climate Justice by Mary Robinson. It gives a very nice perspective of what really it means, and you will realize that how climate justice uh, or climate change is just kind of exacerbating existing inequalities in our society. It's just making that more visible, and I look at it that it is giving us an opportunity to solve these historical injustices. So that's a nice book which somebody can read.
One misconception that you think people think about environmental law in India.
Okay, that is hard to say. What would be somebody's misconception about environmental law? I think maybe a lot of people think that when you're trying to protect the environment, you are against development or progress. I
Hmm.
think that is something which often people construe it to be, but
Hmm.
that is not the case, because there are so many costs and support that the environment provides into our economy, uh, which are hidden, which are not kind of accounted for. So the
Hmm.
real development and progress cannot be without involving the environment. And there are so many alternatives, and mostly when people are saying that when they're pursuing environmental law, or pursuing that this should not be done, there will always be an alternative that is kind of provided. uh, it is not just plain that just don't do this. There will be an alternative that is explored, and that is coming from a lot of evidence and research, not just in India but across the world. So there's I think that could be an misconception.
Okay. A daily practice that helps you avoid burnout.
uh, it's not a daily practice as much as I would want to, but right now I'm in Delhi, and the air is so bad, or other times it's so hot that I would not like, I don't get to go into nature as much as I want. But otherwise, yeah, and whenever I have time and whenever I feel like it's going into nature and just feeling relaxed, that's the best uh,
Hmm.
way to kill burnout. And also to feel more energized and hopeful, inspired to continue working in this space. And on a daily basis, maybe I would say meeting so many people who are working in this space. So some days when you don't have that much hope, you meet somebody else who has the hope. Like
Mm,
today, I mean, yeah, the conversation with you really has given me so much hope that, there are young people wanting to be in this space and wanting to help. So yeah, I think that helps keep the burnout away.
that's nice. So before we end up, any final piece of advice that you would like to give to young professionals?
Mm, I would say just read about some of these issues and observe what's happening around you, and maybe there will be something that will hit a chord with you, and you will feel passionate to really change. It could be anything. It could be, yeah, again, like, certain birds that are probably missing in your neighborhood, which you would want them to be back, or certain trees. It could be anything. But so just
Mm,
observe and read a lot about some of these issues. That is, irrespective if you want to make a career in this, you just read so be you are mindful, and you will then start seeing the intersections in every aspect of our lives. And it's in that sense kind of agnostic of which career you are in. Climate change is impacting everything
mm.
that we are speaking of. So the more aware you are, the more responsive you can be. So yeah. And yeah, definitely listen to this podcast by Climate Connect.
Thank you so much, Namrata. Your journey is really inspiring and something that even I could connect because since childhood I've been interested in this field, and now we can just follow our interest and passion and just go on forward. I hope our audiences would have also felt the same after hearing your journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining us till the end. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Keep following us for more such inspiring stories.